Hey everyone, it's Alan from Talking Marketing once again. I hope you're all doing well. I have been very busy with my job hunt and other AMA duties, but summer is here and we're doing some very fun stuff at the chapter. Just this past week, we had a marketing mingle event at a loft hotel in the seaport of the Boston area, and we had a great turnout and a lot of fun. We met some really cool people, and I hope that you can join us for our upcoming marketing mingles, which you can see all of their schedules for at amaboston.org. Now, before I introduce today's episode, I wanted to mention to you all that this is a season finale of sorts for Talking Marketing. So since last February, I've had the pleasure of interviewing some incredible guests and learning something new every other month to share with you guys on the podcast. And it's been a ton of fun. And I want to be clear that I'm not stepping down from my position on the board, nor is Talking Marketing ending. However, I am taking the summer off to relax, do a little bit of traveling, finish up this job search, hopefully, and let the recorded episodes start to back up again so that we can get back to schedule and keep up our wonderful content for you all. Stay tuned on our social media for updates about Talking Marketing and when the show is coming back. I'm aiming for either August or September, but I can't promise anything because I need to leave myself open to flexibility. I think that's really important, and I hope that you can understand that why we're taking the break. Now, I'll tell you a little bit about our speaker. Neal Schaffer is a guru in the marketing world, and I know I use that word a lot, but this guy has really mastered the art of personal branding. You literally cannot Google Neal Schaffer without getting something he's worked on in some capacity. With his education experience and his job experience as a fractional CMO, Neal has amassed a wealth of knowledge, and I really loved chatting with him. So this has definitely been an episode that we've all been looking forward to for a long time, especially at AMA Boston. The conversation often comes up, hey, when's that Neal episode coming out? Hey, you got to talk to Neal. That's so cool. Hey, when are we going to hear the Neal thing? So here we are, folks. Please enjoy my chat with Neal Schaffer. Hello and welcome back to Talking Marketing, an AMA Boston podcast where we chat with marketing professionals across various industries and try to get to the core of what makes their work impactful. I'm Alan Ibrahim, your host and director of content for the American Marketing Association's Boston chapter. And today I'm very excited to welcome my guest, Neal Schaffer. Neal is the CMO of Fractional and author of The Age of Influence. Neal, welcome to Talking Marketing.
Alan, I'm so excited to finally make this happen and to be here.
Yes, indeed. A little behind the scenes, Neal and I actually had our original prep conversation, golly, back in February, was it, right? Or like early February?
I think it was before that because I spoke at the annual virtual summit
Yeah.
back in January. I think it was even December, January when we first talked about this podcast.
Yeah, and it's been a long time coming. I gotta tell you, you have been one of the most hyped guests amongst our group. Every time I mention to someone, "Oh, I'm going to be speaking to Neal soon," every time somebody goes, "Oh my God, like that's so exciting! I love Neal!" Like so.
I'm honored.
Uh,
I'm honored. And I will say, I'm obviously very active on social media, and of all the AMA chapters, AMA Boston literally is you guys set the trend. No one is as truly active in social as the Boston chapter is. So kudos to everything you're doing there.
Utterly flattered, and I'll make sure that the social team hears that part so they feel good about themselves
And
too.
I honestly mean that. It's funny. Back in the day, I ran a marketing technology conference called Social Tool Summit. And my partner, who I ran it with, was based in Boston. So we did two
Oh,
events in Boston and actually collaborated with AMA Boston. This is back in 2014, 2015. So it's
oh
great
yeah,
to be back collaborating again.
absolutely. And we're always happy to have more folks in here into our big family. So folks who don't know of you as a legend in the world of, of the marketing micro celebrity world, tell me about your background. Where do you come from? What are you doing in the marketing world right now?
So my background is really, I have a long career that started before we had something called social media. So I don't want to go too far back in history, but my professional background before marketing was more along B2B sales and biz dev in technology. And very uniquely, I started my career and lived in Japan for 15 years. And I also
Huh?
speak Chinese in addition to Japanese. So I did a lot of business in Asia, and I was often a country manager where I had to wear a lot of hats, and had to understand how to do business with different cultures, different countries, different currencies, different legal systems, different ways of
Right.
marketing. And that's really where I first began to learn about marketing because I was in charge of everything, including marketing. And we didn't have dedicated marketing people, but I knew that it would be important to the business. So fast forward, came back to the United States in transition for the first time, got really active on LinkedIn to build a network that I didn't have locally here in the US because my career had always been in Japan. That led me to really seeing LinkedIn as this strategic tool that very few people saw it at the time. And I began getting really active within LinkedIn. Used to have something called LinkedIn Answers. It was like Quora. LinkedIn groups used to be a lot more organic. So every day I was having these amazing conversations. And as I got deeper, a lot of people started to ask me questions. I started to answer questions, which led me to begin a blog. And the blog I launched through LinkedIn, which used to actually support various third party apps, including WordPress.com. So, launched my WordPress blog through LinkedIn, and I ended up finding this job that I was looking for. But then we had something called the Lehman Brothers crisis, which was the Silicon Valley Bank crisis before Silicon Valley Bank. And that led me to going full in. My wife's like, you know what, while you're in transition, why don't you like write a book? So I was able to take this blog. I already had 25% of my book written. That book came out in 2009. It was about LinkedIn. And after I published that book, I had speaking opportunities. And then in January 2010, I had a bunch of consulting opportunities. So I just ran with it. And for the last, yeah, it's been 13 years and 2 months now. I've been very active, obviously, as a content creator. I've written 4 books now, hoping to get that 5th one written soon. I teach at a few universities, Rutgers Business School. I've been teaching there for several years out here in LA, UCLA Extension. Speak at a lot of conferences, and I'm a fractional CMO. So I work with businesses on a part time basis in a very, very flexible arrangement as their marketing leader. So yeah, in a nutshell, but I'm also just very active on, not just on social, but very active with my blog, nealschaffer.com. I have my own podcast, Your Digital Marketing Coach with Neal Schaffer. Trying to boost now my YouTube channel, which is, the final third of that third trifecta. And I just try to keep active. And really, Alan, if there's anything that has helped make me what you would consider a micro celebrity, I don't think I am at all, but if you say so, I'll take it. Is just being consistently active, of just not, there are good times, there are bad times. There are days you get a lot of engagement, there are days you get little engagement, but it's really in the back of my mind thinking, I have a target audience out there. I have a community of customers and readers out there, and I need to serve them. And whether they engage today or tomorrow, that focus, right, has really kept me going on that target user. Like, I'm not going to forget about that, Sally or Ronald or Acme Corporation or whatever that target persona or avatar is. They need help, and I want to help them, and that's my legacy is creating this content and being active in social media. So
Right.
we all need to have a mission. If we really want to be in it for the long haul, you really need to have a mission oriented marketing.
Well said. Absolutely, Neil. And I feel like you having that senior level of experience in this world means that you've seen things come and go in a big way. A lot of
Oh
our
yeah.
prep call was actually about like influencer marketing, and that's something that you've been kind of dipping your toe into a little bit. I'm kind of curious to get things started, like about influencer stuff. Where do you think this trend came from? Where do you think the explosion of influencer marketing came from? Why is it such a common thing? I mean, I spoke to a guest recently about how his students he asks them what's their number one career dream, even like younger than high school, and a lot of them say they want to be influencers. Like, where did this come from?
Yeah, so it's funny. I teach a course at UCLA Extension on influencer marketing, and last semester I had 25 students. This semester I have 53 students. So
Whoa.
there's definitely been a huge growth. And I wrote my last book on influencer marketing, The Age of Influence. So I'm often asked to speak about it. I think it started for me back in 2017, 2018, where I started to get asked about influence marketing as a marketing channel. And
Mhm.
as I did my own research and I connected the dots of my own professional past, I realized that it's really this trend of leveraging other people. Back in 2012, 13, there was something new called employee advocacy, or leveraging your employee's voice in social media, which I consider a type of influencer marketing. You're trying to leverage someone outside of the brand, right? An employee. It could be an
Right.
external influencer. For B2B companies, it could be an internal subject matter expert that you want to get out there on social media. I would say affiliate marketing has been around for that is a type of influencer marketing. These are
For sure.
influential entities that generate web traffic. So before Charlie D'Amelio on TikTok and her Dunkin' Donut drink, and before Instagrammers, and even I'd say before mommy bloggers, we had this concept of a celebrity endorsement. And back in the day, today I look at my kids on TikTok. It's like me watching TV, switching channels, 30 years ago.
Yeah.
They're doing the same thing with TikTok, right? So before all this, we were very influenced by those celebrities because
Hmm.
we did not have this democratization of media that we have today. So, if they were on TV, if they were, in the newspapers, radio, magazine, they were on movies, what have you, those people had significant influence and they would be leveraged by brands. In fact, if we go back in history, there was a Mark Twain cigar. Mark Twain was a famous cigar smoker. So when one brand actually said, "Hey, let's just create a Mark Twain cigar," share the profits with them, and that's like the best thing that you can do. There's advertisements like Babe Ruth, early days of baseball,
Sure.
advertising cigarettes, and so this concept of leveraging a celebrity and if the celebrity is using it, or if it seems that the celebrity is using it, it's good for us, right? It builds trust, it builds credibility. That is a concept that's been around. We can even go back further in history. I won't bore you, but it's been around for a while. But obviously, social media made all of us be influenced by different people, and there's just this whole new generation of people that influence us. And I think for younger people, if you understand the way that social media algorithms work, their feeds get flooded with influencers that they follow, that
Hmm.
truly influence them to buy product or to try out things or to be interested in things or to try a life hack or a recipe, right? So, yeah, I can see why they think, wow, if I'm an influencer, I get lots of free stuff, I get money, and I can do, what I enjoy doing every day for a living. How awesome would that be? So, it is
Hmm.
like back in the day, I want to build a .com, I want to build an app. We've seen like young people be interested in different things, but truly influencers, or I want to be a YouTuber, or I want to be a streamer. Definitely, I hear a lot of that as well, and I think for good reason. I mean, it looks like a lot of fun. I think on the flip side, for every influencer that is successful, there's 100 that aren't successful. For every influencer that blew up overnight, there are 100 that it took them years of work,
Right.
hundreds of videos to finally blow up. So part of it's luck, part of it's timing, but it's a lot of hard work. It's a lot of consistency. And once again, if you don't have a mission, right, it's not going to last.
Yeah, it's funny. I really never considered the legacy of it going all the way back to celebrity endorsements, or even just like movie stars,
Absolutely.
for example, wearing certain products. Like you don't think of Elizabeth Taylor wearing a pearl necklace in a film as being in the same conversation as like Charlie D'Amelio, Dunkin' Donuts, but there is a line to be drawn there, which I just think is super fascinating. Because
Yeah,
people always want to see other people and have that like ideal of if I look like this, then I can, if I buy this, I'll look like that.
yeah. I mean, the first celebrity endorsement that I bring up when I talk about the history of this is actually Josiah Wedgwood. If you're familiar with Wedgwood, fine plates, ceramics.
Oh,
Um,
sure. Okay.
he was actually commissioned by the Queen of England, and the Queen allowed him to use the fact that his, fine ceramics were used by the Queen. He was able to actually use that celebrity endorsement in his product. So I don't
Interesting.
know if he provided it to the Queen for free for that. I don't know the full history, but it is one of the first documented celebrity endorsements. You can imagine. I mean, the Queen endorsing your product, and that probably is why Wedgwood is one of those few companies that still survives today, hundreds of years of history, beginning with that celebrity endorsement. So yeah, it goes pretty far back in history.
Super interesting. And I mean, as an educator, I guess my other question is like, we can talk about TikTok actually. I think,
Sure.
we've discussed how it is an evolution of, it's a great place for influencers. It is a great place for consumers. And you compared it to TV channels or channel surfing rather.
Totally.
Um, what do you, there's just TikTok is something that I've kind of like circled around, and I've really struggled to find somebody like specific to talk to about it. But I guess for you, like, what is it about TikTok that has you so interested in it as the sort of next big frontier? As you mentioned, the tiers of, big building a personal brand, and like, why is it important to new marketers?
Well, I am very data driven, as every marketer should be in what they do.
For
And
sure.
the data doesn't lie in terms of the popularity of TikTok. Um, in terms of not just actual downloads, actual users, but time spent.
Hmm.
And we have to remember that every social media marketing trend began with the younger generation. Facebook
Yes.
fans, Facebook college students, Facebook, fan pages, as we used to call them before they were business pages. These organic fans of, musicians and stuff built these pages and what have you. We saw the same thing with Instagram. Used to be, primarily younger at its beginnings. We saw Snapchat. And we saw Instagram copy things from Snapchat. We see Instagram copy things from TikTok. And obviously, the latest platform for the younger generation is TikTok. And once again, the other platforms are trying to emulate it.
Yeah.
Um, what makes TikTok really interesting and unique is obviously the type of content is very engaging. We all know the video is the most engaging type of content, but think about, YouTube is full of, videos ranging from 1 minute to a few hours, whereas TikTok, it's really short. It's really built for short attention spans. It's direct, it's entertaining, it's visually stunning. It takes over the entire phone screen,
Right.
so it really is the most impactful in many ways. And it's not just that content format and the way that people have found new ways to create content in that format, various different trending ways of developing content there. It's also the fact that the algorithm is the first case of what we would call recommended media. So we could say the same thing about YouTube. If you work for a brand that has a YouTube channel, you'll probably notice that you might have subscribers, but very few of your views actually come from subscribers. If you
Right.
do it right, right, you get a lot of what we'd call recommended from search or browse or what have you. TikTok, though, is really the first social media site that almost 100% is based on the algorithm trying to understand what you want to see. YouTube has always
Right.
done this, but I think TikTok does it to an extreme. And obviously, YouTube Shorts becomes the same thing, but it's really trying to understand, regardless of who you follow, right? What is the content that you like, and how do we give person that is on the platform more of the content they like? So it doesn't matter how many followers you have. Um, and what it also means is you don't have to have a lot of followers to get a lot of visibility on that platform as well,
Yeah.
compared to an Instagram or Facebook pages where marketers are banging their heads against the wall, trying to figure out how organic reach keeps on declining. We don't have those conversations on TikTok, right? So if you make content that serves an audience, the algorithm will help find the audience for you, assuming it's an engaging video. And that is another reason why TikTok is really different and why it's been so
Hmm.
impactful. And I think Instagram with Reels and YouTube with Shorts is obviously trying to emulate it. YouTube probably has the best shot at it, but TikTok has that algorithm really glued in. They have the ways of creating different formats. They have a lot of content creators on there already creating the content, and it's become a search engine for Gen Z. There's already
Right.
data that shows 50-60% of Gen Z use it as a search engine. My
Hmm.
high school kids talk about what they found on TikTok, and they don't Google's for boomers, right?
Right.
And even
Ugh.
maybe for millennials, like it was about YouTube instead of Google, but we're far beyond that. So when a social network has that much impact, right? And when I talk about this, a lot of senior marketers go, "I'll never use TikTok. They're stealing my data." And that's not the point here. It's the point that, if you want to reach Gen Z, you have to use TikTok, 'cause that's where
Yeah.
they are 80% of the time. But it's also the impact it's having in other social media. So you really need to understand the short form video content. If you're a brand, you really need to understand how to create that. And the best way to do it is just to spend more time on TikTok, consume more of that content,
Right.
see how others are doing it. So yeah, of all the networks right now, it is the most impactful, the most trendy. It has introduced this new type of content called that short form video that is
Yeah.
becoming prevalent everywhere. And even if TikTok goes away tomorrow because President Biden or the Congress, whatever, bans it, that style of video is still going to be popular. And there will be another site. TikTok might be sold to someone else, but that form of video, beginning with YouTube Shorts with Reels, it's not going away. And it's going to become the most predominant type that every marketer needs to figure out how to do.
Right. Like, say what you will, your qualms, people who have qualms about TikTok security it's valid. But like you said, the audience is there. You can't pretend the audience isn't there. And I think something interesting, and you can tell me if I'm wrong here, but sort of a difference between TikTok and YouTube's algorithm and how they promote content is, I think that TikTok, because trends evolve a lot faster, uh, you can get into the algorithm faster. You can get successful. One of my favorite YouTube like educators and creators is Ali Abdal. He does a lot of like great marketing stuff and like how to get into understand the algorithms. And he talks about how like it took him at least a year of consistently creating good video content before YouTube like acknowledged him, and the algorithm pushed him. And the idea of doing that for a year on TikTok is like unheard of because it just happens faster. Which is good and bad, right? Like you get into it faster, but they can also just drop you a lot faster, and it's harder to. Some people say it's harder to build a sustainable model in a platform like TikTok because people are just moving and forgetting about what they saw a month ago.
Yeah, so I mean, this actually gets into a deeper conversation. But YouTube obviously was created from the desktop, right? So they
Right.
have all these other features like browse and search. Whereas TikTok, there might be searches, but it's primarily just going and scrolling through the feed. So the way that the recommendation engine works is fundamentally different because of that. And therefore, I think that YouTube is more based on the Google model, which does take time to get indexed. Whereas TikTok, it's all about the trends. If you jump on a certain trend bandwagon, you can get that video going get a lot more popular a lot quicker. So
Right.
I do hear that story about YouTubers saying that it requires 100 videos. We could say the same thing about blogs. It
Yeah.
requires like a year's worth of blogs until Google recognizes your niche and you start to get more preferential treatment. Not the same on TikTok. I will say though, even if the trend is over, TikTok is a search engine. So those videos do get,
Recycle.
reshown
Yeah.
at a certain point because it's supply and demand. There's just way too much demand and way too little supply still on TikTok. That will change over time. But
Mhm.
for now, that is really the thing that I'm seeing. So I'll scroll through and I'll see videos from like last year. That would never
Yeah.
happen on Instagram. That would never happen on Facebook, right? So yeah, YouTube is the most equivalent. And I think right now, those are the two most important platforms that every marketer, YouTube for, we were talking about AI and maybe we can talk about that later, but for a lot of
Yeah.
reasons, YouTube is really showing more recently with YouTube Shorts. Like India is a country where TikTok is banned, so
Hmm.
that makes YouTube Shorts even more important for
Right. In India.
global audiences.
Hmm.
But yeah, I think that they're YouTube, TikTok fundamentally different. You need to have both, and TikTok, that content does have a long lifespan like it does on YouTube. But
Right.
I will say though, last point here, I don't want to talk too long about this, is
Sure.
the audience for short form video is different than the audience for long form video. And a lot of
Yes.
YouTubers will talk about this as well, right? The people consuming your YouTube shorts are very different from the people that consume your long form video. So it's harder to build a relationship when people are scrolling through, right? How do you get
Exactly.
them to stick with you and want to see more of your content? And it really comes down to personality, branding, and all those things. But yeah, it is harder to create a stickier relationship in short form because it only lasts in a few seconds versus a longer form video. So they both have their pluses and minuses. I say you need both, and there's two different types of marketing there, of content creation, and you need to figure both types out.
Yeah, and that's another thing I didn't like super consider, and I feel like my brain is on like a fourth dimension right now. But how all of these platforms have a different relationship to your time. Like Instagram very much wants you to feel like you're almost watching everything live. Like these stories, you're refreshing them until you're basically watching them down to the when they were posted, and your explore page is down to the minute. And then TikTok, it's like you are posting something, and then hopefully it gets picked up soon. But like you said, because it's a search engine, then in 6 months from now, in a year from now, somebody's going to search the topic if it's interesting and relevant, and then it'll just be there, and people use that search engine when they want to find information. So I think it's really important for people who want to create short form video to consider like, hey, how is this going to impact people like 6 months from now or 2 years from now? Because it's going to show up in their search page.
Yeah, you might get what I find it's really interesting. I think a lot of people have a similar experience. They'll put up a short form video on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. And for me, YouTube gets the most views, right?
Uh-huh.
But I know that TikTok still has the potential to get views over time, so I don't give up on it.
Exactly.
Um, I know someone who creates content for TikTok. She tries to create trendy TikTok short form video, but it always does better on Instagram Reels. So, but over time, I think she has a better chance of getting more views on TikTok because versus Instagram because of the way that recommended
Yeah.
media engine works. So it's very very interesting, and I think like all of this, Alan, it comes down to data. You gotta have your
Right.
own experiments, right? And if it's like, wow, I'm getting 5 times more views on YouTube, then go with YouTube. You don't have to
Right.
do everything. You don't have to be everywhere, but I do think you do have to get that type of content down. And for most marketers that have been at this for a while, it is. I mean, video is hard enough.
Hmm.
This makes it even harder, right? So it's very challenging.
Yeah, and looking at your data and understanding it meaningfully helps you find what platform works best for you or your business. I mean, like since my first episode of Talking Marketing, we've joked about the CIA being on TikTok and how poorly that went for them because that's not the platform for them. Like if they have a social team, that's just not where they belong because
Right.
Gen Z folks are super skeptical and for good reasons. So just you simply don't need to be there, even though it feels like it's the platform to be on. Um, so in regards to like good content that you appreciate and that you feel like is pushing the platform in good directions, in our call we actually talked about a creator named Alex Hermosi, and I'm curious, like people like him are doing things like storytelling and communicating ideas and bigger picture things to their viewers. What are folks like Alex Hermosi and others doing well in your opinion on TikTok that's different than the usual like follow the trend hustle?
Yeah, so this is really encouraging if you are in B2B like myself, or you want to provide educational content.
Yeah.
You might think of a blog post, you might think of a talking head YouTube video. And what, Alex Ramones has really started a trend. There are now people who say, I'll help you create TikTok videos in Alex Hormozzi's style. It's sort of like,
Wow.
Gary Vaynerchuk is now forgotten. And Alex Hormozzi is a, a famous entrepreneur. He's also an author. Look
Yeah,
him up on Amazon, but he's also done really well and really influenced a lot of people, a lot of entrepreneurs on TikTok.
for
And it's
sure.
really about one point that you want to come across. It is storytelling, and it's very brief and very to the point.
Yes.
And I think if you're able to consume a few of his videos, I think you would see what he's talking about. But it's really about how do we take an idea. So if TikTok is a search engine, right? Let's reverse engineer this. If TikTok is a search engine, I have 600 blog posts on my website. Ideally, if I'm trying to aim for certain keywords or certain things that people search for, I should have one TikTok for every blog post I have. And in that TikTok, within 15 to 30 seconds, how can I dumb down this idea and make it really simple and actionable for someone to understand? So until I think this other big shift that we didn't talk about on our phone calls to prep, but something I recently recorded my own podcast episode about, another way to think of social media that's different from the old way of thinking about it is I call it authentically social. Social platforms have always wanted you to stay on the platform, right? We know
Right.
that if you put a link like on LinkedIn or Facebook, it performs really bad compared to other types of content. And TikTok is an example where you can't link. I mean, the video is the content.
Yeah.
There's not much more you can do. And I think even with other platforms like LinkedIn, with carousel posts, or you have a selfie photo and just have this long post describing an idea, or Twitter threads where you're just describing an idea, you're basically providing value to the social media user in that platform without them having to go to your website to get the value. So if you
Right.
think of it that way, you're really trying to do the same thing with a 2,000 word blog post in a 30-second talking head video, but very fast. You're cutting out spaces between sentences. You're popping up emojis. You have text on screen. Popping up in bright letters when you want to have when you have words that have impact. It's this style, but I think it really makes sense and it really impactfully dumbs down, but gets the message across. And if, like I said, I think the best way to do it is really just to search up Alex Ramosi on TikTok and look at his videos. But
Yeah.
that is a really great way that I think any business, should you want to get started, the challenge is you need to have a face for your company.
Right.
So you could do a Duolingo did, which have like a cute character. Or if you have a social media community manager, they can become the face, or you can work with influencers, right? There's a few
Right.
different ways to do it, but it has to be a person. And that's another challenging thing for brands that used to, not used to having people come straight front and center, in video, especially at that TikTok style. But yeah, that's sort of the formula. And, it is, you can reverse engineer it and you can do something similar for your company, but then it comes down to what is that content? Who is the speaker? How engaging is that story?
It's almost like we're giving away the secret sauce here, Neil. We got to be careful.
Uh-oh.
We're reverse
You got
engineering
to
the
buy
formula
my
for.
course. No,
Yeah, there you go. Well, that's what that's what the plugs are for, of course.
I'm joking. I
So
don't have a course.
uh but anyway, so like one of the topics that has kind of incessantly come up and is still in the news every single day, related to what we're talking about, is AI. And this is a broad topic. I mean, I've talked to guests about it in regards to search, in regards to content creation. Even on TikTok, we have that controversy about the glamour filter that is probably AI based, because even though people can cover their faces, the usual like TikTok can change your face thing, it still detects hands, which is like potentially problematic for how much it is recording of your face. And we have things like AI influencers. And I'm just so curious, like, what do you think is the future? Like, what should people who want to get into being an influencer, who are engaged in this sort of marketing, what should they be cautious of? And what should they be excited for with how AI is being integrated into the platforms?
Yeah, I think AI has always been there. I mean, Google search is based on, there's machine learning and then there's AI.
Right.
So we're not going to go into the deep technical specs about that, but components of AI have been out there for some time, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Even like Google suggests, they're trying to figure out what you're going to search for next and type in a letter and it'll suggest things. So
Right.
that doesn't AI doesn't scare me at all. Um,
Right.
and I think from a marketing perspective, what we need to understand is just how other companies are already using it. So I would say a few months ago you should start experimenting with it, but now you should actually be using it. And the easiest way to start using it, and like I said, I teach this influencer marketing class. So last night I asked my students, I'm like, hey, how many of you don't lie. How many of you have ever used ChatGPT? It's okay. You don't have to be shy about it. It's okay.
Yeah.
Obviously everyone raises their hand, first of all.
Uh-huh.
And I said, have you ever typed something in and then it's giving you back all these things you never thought about? And everyone raises their hand. Because when you tap into AI or ChatGPT or GPT-4, you're tapping into the collective intelligence and experience of the human race, basically, right? So I think at a minimum, for ideation, it is a critical tool for any marketer to have. For instance, okay, I'm laying it out there. Right now on LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube, 100% of my new posts are all generated by AI.
Wow.
Now, hopefully it doesn't look like it's generated by AI, but I will tell you, especially for if I want to share a blog post, I have a way where I think the audience might be interested in it. But what would, if I had like a staff of three, what would each one of those people say to describe that to make it more engaging, to
Right.
to describe it like on LinkedIn or Twitter? So when you use an AI and you ask for three different prompts or three different three different options to choose from, you're
Right.
asking Joe, Jane, and Mary how they would basically, right? So
Right.
now instead of your
Yeah.
own voice, you're able to choose between four voices which one sounds the best. And
Hmm.
obviously, you can use it as is, you can edit it. But I'll give you another example, like a YouTube video title. And all the YouTube tools now, well, vidIQ, TubeBuddy are the two big ones. They all have these, AI generated title suggestions. And oh my gosh, I mean, Alan, I go in there, it's like this is I could not have thought of this title myself.
Right.
So that's, ideation, some short form content creation, but that is the initial way. And I think once you start to do that, you realize, wow, I can focus more time on engagement and less time thinking about what should this YouTube description be or how should I describe this in a social media post. That to me, the time you save, you can invest in relationships or in creating better content. I think
Hmm.
that's one of the key things that smart marketers, it's not about being able to create, 10 blog posts a day because you can do it with AI. It's more about how do we use it to, AI for proofreading, right? AI for ideation, and then actually create better content in less time and use that time in more strategic areas. So that's my take on it. And I think we're out of experimental mode. Companies are already leveraging
Yeah.
this. And I went to Jasper.ai. They're one of the leading AI tools for marketers. They had a generative AI conference in San Francisco that I attended.
Oh.
It was actually like a month ago, so we hadn't talked about this before.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
they said, they gave an example of one of their customers. They provide auto tint services. So if you want to get your auto windows tinted, they provide it. And they're
Sure.
like, you know what? We need new messaging. Like we're not doing that well. We're not reaching our customer. They go into Jasper, which is tapped into ChatGPT and AI. They're like, why would people buy auto tint services? And the number one thing that came up was to protect their kids from the UV rays. Why didn't we think of that? It became their messaging, and now the company's flourishing. All from
Right.
that one idea, right? And if you had the chance to tap into a user focus group of 100 people, ask them why they might consider, you might have gotten the same answer, but with AI, you
Hmm.
get it instantaneously. So that's why that ideation is already having business impact, like today or
Right.
yesterday. So it's not a matter of like if or when to get started. It's a matter of getting started, figuring out how to work it. What are the tools that are out there? How you can use them? How do you work it in your processes? How do you make things more efficient? Have a better quality output? And then what are you going to do with that time that's freed up and improve your marketing? That's the main message for me.
I love it. And I feel the same way I do whenever I find myself talking about AI with folks, which is like my brain just like got a little bit bigger today, like it physically expanded. Because like that's an incredible example, the card tinting that you can like I, for example, struggle with like naming podcasts when I like make new podcasts. It's like, okay,
Oh
what am I
my.
gonna call this? And that is a part like what I end up doing is I ideate in a Google Doc with another person. Like we just type things and we kind of like it, so that it feels original, we just keep typing in free form idea creating. Uh, and I can imagine a world where you do the same thing, but you're just doing that with Chat GPT as the other person. And it just eventually can spit out to you like, hey, here's a great name for podcast. And it already knows that it's not taken. It skips the like research that you have to do because it's
Hey,
tapped into all of that.
Alan, on that note, one of the biggest YouTubers, he has the most popular TikTok video of all time, Zach King, was one of
Hmm.
the speakers. And Zach King,
Oh,
all of his video ideas now come from AI.
wow.
He gets inspired by AI to create
Uh-huh.
content.
Right.
So that's how far we've come. And it's that exact same process, using AI to come up with 100 ideas. And then the team talks about them, right? Which of these, and then they whittle it down and then they move forward with the winning ideas. So, yep.
Wild. Truly wild. And something we're going to keep tapping into, especially I think as of like today, a lot of the biggest platforms are just straight up including GPT-4 in their API. Like it's just being incorporated everywhere. Uh
Yeah, I've already seen the responses I'm getting are very different than I got a few days ago. Like this, on TikTok potentially being banned. Like this AI model, this AI language model cannot offer an opinion. Just really bizarre responses. But anyway, it's
yeah.
not perfect. But yeah, most social media platforms now, are offering some AI, to help you write your posts. So AI is going to become, it's going to become like the internet. You know, my son plays soccer, and our team was out in Las Vegas, and another of the soccer dads, he actually works in the administration at the Los Angeles Unified School District,
Hmm.
and I'm like, well, what is LAUSD going to do about AI? And he goes, well, if it's a tool that students can use, we can't prevent them from using it. We can only teach them how to best use it, give them some guardrails,
Right.
and teach them how to use it to their benefit because they're going to need to understand how to use it for their future career, right? And I think that's the right approach. So I don't shy away from it, and that's why I'm like very honest in saying, hey, my social media post that's it's all being created by AI right now. Obviously, I'm choosing the prompts, I'm editing it, making sure it fits. But yeah, you need to use the tools, the technology. It's almost like I'm going to write a blog post without doing any internet research, right?
Right.
ChatGPT is internet research, and if you think about it that way, it's just a lot more easier to understand how and why it should be used.
Right. It goes back to the whole like when I was in high school and they said don't use Wikipedia, like because the internet is a resource that replaces your hard work and thinking. And now it's like, okay, we have to acknowledge that people are doing that. And like you said, help them use it as a tool and not as a replacement for their own work.
Yeah, I mean, I remember it was like 2005 or 2006. Some Los Angeles Times, cold call trying to sell me on a newspaper subscription. I'm like, well, I get my news from social media, and he's like, are you crazy? You believe what you read on the internet? And I mean, there is some craziness to it, but
Of
yeah, the
course.
internet has replaced the traditional form of media in terms of where we get our news. And who would have thought of that 30 years ago? So who would have thought that the internet is responsible for what 20% of global commerce now?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's it evolves, and you do not want to be the person in the back of the room who has all the questions, who doesn't understand the new technology. You want to
No.
be on top of it, right? And be the leader in your organization, really pushing the agenda forward for this technology that is going to be impactful.
Absolutely. And especially in marketing, more than anything else, we are at the whims of current trends, right?
We have to
Um,
be.
I'm curious then, even separate from AI, if there is like a piece of advice or something like a sort of nugget of wisdom from you, Neal Schaffer, about like people who may want to become influencers, because the market is so crowded right now. You know, everybody and their mother and their brother wants to be an influencer. Uh, what does somebody who's getting started need to think about and be doing right now?
Well, every influencer is a content creator.
Right. Of course.
So when I wrote The Age of Influence, we didn't have the term creator economy, which we have today, because most influencers primarily made money through brand collaborations or sponsorship deals. But today, if we think of the creator economy, there's a lot more ways to monetize your content.
Hmm.
Outside of brand collaborations, you can, there are companies that'll pay you just to create content for them. Disney just hired a bunch of content creators for their marketing team.
Right.
So yeah, you can become an internal influencer for at a company. I
Hmm.
think it really comes down to, you know, if you're a content creator, you're on a mission, you want to share your knowledge about something. Even if you're not knowledgeable about it and you're learning about it, you can still be sharing as you learn, is another way of looking at it. But it's really the people that are most successful, they have a niche. There's one central theme that they have. If there's a central theme that you have, it makes it easier for people to understand what you're about. More importantly, it makes it easy for the algorithm to understand what you're about. I have a YouTube channel, but I'm all over the place. Like I did a live stream about AI and marketing. Yesterday, I interviewed Joe Pulizzi about content marketing. A few days ago, I interviewed someone about branding.
Right.
So the algorithm doesn't know what my channel's about. But if every one of those videos was about content marketing, then the algorithm would know I'm about content marketing. People would remember me more for content marketing, right? So that's why everybody always recommends a niche. And I believe that, yeah, you have to choose a certain area that you're going to focus on, and you need to be consistent, right? And you need to be creating content. That's really, those are the initial ways you want to get started. And you need to have enough content to last. You know,
Right.
YouTubers will post 3 to 5, like really successful YouTubers are posting like 3 to 5 times a week. Even if you want to blog or podcast, it's normally going to be once a week. So begin with, over the course of a year, what are 50 things I could talk about? And therefore, if you have the most experience in something, the most passionate about something, you're going to come up with the ideas. Those 100
Right.
ideas that Zach King was talking about. You could use AI to look for the ideas, but if you're not experienced in it, you're not passionate about it, you can't really speak to it, right?
Hmm.
AI can only get you so far. So that's really what it comes down to. And if you're not experienced in it, well, then make the content part of your journey. Like, I'm going to master TikTok. I'm going to get, day one of TikTok, first video. This is what,
Right.
this day two, this is what I learned today. Day three, oh, when I use this hashtag, I got way more impressions. Whatever it is, there
Hmm.
are ways of like doing it as you go. But that's really the thought process. And I think finally, if you can figure out, you know, how you want, what are your goals, right? If you don't plan
Hmm.
on monetizing it, awesome, right? But if you want to monetize it, it's almost like reverse. I love reverse engineering. It's like, okay, a year from now, I want to make $100,000, and I'm going to make that $100,000 through A, B, and C. What are the products?
Hmm.
And really strategically focus your content to be a natural sell for the products. Like Miss Excel is a great example on TikTok. Miss Excel, it's all these like Excel tutorials, right? And who would
Oh
have thought
yeah.
that she
Yeah.
right? And then she sells courses that obviously, hey, or like templates, and then
Hmm.
corporations can work for her as well. So I don't know if that happened by accident, which I assume some of it probably did, but it's a great example of really planning out where do you see what what product or service could you offer based on what you're talking about, and then really build that product as you create that content and repurpose your content into the product. So if you can get all that down and really think strategically, that would be my best advice.
Incredible. I think yeah, it does boil down to find your niche, which like I say, I had the pleasure of speaking at a Suffolk University recently to talk about podcasting, just like my 101 journey. And one
Mm-hmm.
of the things that came up was like, okay, but there's 8 billion podcasts, especially if you're a white guy. There are like 8.5 billion podcasts that are like that sound like me. What do I do to be different? And my answer was just like you said, like find a hyper specific thing that you're obsessed with. Especially young people, we have so many fixations. We have so many like, fandom and culture and thinking and education. There are really specific topics that you can drill into. And you may think, I don't know if I can make, like you said, 50 of these a year. But in actuality, if you start and you realize very quickly, oh, nobody else is really doing this the way that I'm doing, then you already have your niche. You already have people who are actively seeking it out. And they're like, oh, this is my number one-stop shop for my hyper specific thing. And that builds a relationship really quickly and efficiently.
And guess what? Even Zach King said, I didn't think I would have enough ideas to last a year. One
Right.
of my favorite podcasters, Amy Woods, she has a podcast called Content 10X about content repurposing.
Ooh.
She's like, she told me, it's like she's at episode like 200 something now, but she's like, I didn't know if I had enough to talk about content repurposing for a year. I didn't think it would last this long, right?
Yeah.
But what happens is you get inspired. You get
Hmm.
inspired when you interview people. There's new trends that come out like TikTok, like AI. There's always something new coming out that you can talk about over time. And your thoughts will evolve. And maybe your niche gets a little bit broader. It can change over time, and that's fine,
Hmm.
right? But yeah, you need to really be memorable, and the niche, a very, very strategic niche, and really developing a unique relationship with your audience. whether it's to a Facebook group or finding a way from a podcaster perspective of bringing them into the podcast, that sense of community is the other way that you can really
Right.
differentiate. If you can really find a way to create this really awesome community.
Love it. I have a couple questions left. Just these are sort of more casual. We're talking a lot about marketing and influencing. You seem like a very optimistic person, Neal, in my opinion, at least. You're smiling a
Oh,
lot. We're having this nice casual convo.
I'm always the optimist. Everybody says, Neal, why are you so positive all the time? So at least I try to be.
So to that question, to that point, I guess it sounds like you're hopeful about the future, whether it's related to marketing or not. Do you feel like you're overall optimistic or hopeful about the future of our world and what we're doing here?
Well, I've been watching a lot of Walking Dead episodes recently, so I
Oh,
don't know. But that aside, yeah, I am. I've always thought that the internet and social media bring people together, give us a better understanding of each other's cultures. We have political differences, and I think there's always going to be the bad guys out there, and there's going to be the good guys that are going to try to go against them. But I think in that backdrop, that environment that we live in, I think that humanity continues to progress. I think that social media is just an amazing way of learning, finding information, connecting with people, maintaining relationships, and I think marketing though. Seth Godin's been talking about this for like decades, but what began as really disruptive needs to be more in the background and more nurturing, more community driven. So marketing will change over time. And I think that as marketing changes, the relationships between brands and consumers and companies and people change as well. And I think that they change in a very, very good way, a very, very positive way. So I look at all these trends. I think that, are there ever any bad trends? Maybe, but trends exist because people latch onto them, right? It's
right.
like, well, TikTok's stupid. What a waste of time. Well, it's not a waste of time to my kids that they're spending hours a day on it, and I can see from the screen time app on their iPhone how much time they spend. So
Right.
you know, yeah, when you start to say, oh, this is stupid, this trend's irrelevant, you cannot ignore what is becoming popular. Will it last or not is another story. But what impact, even if TikTok is banned tomorrow, it's made its impact. That impact is going to
Yep.
last.
No doubt. I love that. I think that it's again, it's the same thing. Like you talk about any new social media and people say, "Oh, it's another one of these." And to close yourself off to that is you're basically just saying I disagree with 90% of people, which,
Yeah.
there's a reason people like it.
Or I don't want to sell my product or service to Gen Z. Or when buyers and companies, when Gen Z starts to become buyers
Yeah.
or managers and companies, well, I don't want to influence them. It's you got to take the best. One piece of advice I'd love to give everybody is take your emotion out of it. If you're truly data driven, it doesn't matter what platform it is. It doesn't matter that you published a blog post 2 years ago and it gets zero traffic. You gotta do something with it, right? You can't, So once you take your emotion out of it, hey, I produced this video. Oh, it didn't get any views. What do I do? You produce another video. You try to do better than the last time, right? So take emotion out of the game, be data driven, know that there's always room for improvement, and know that all just specifically about influencers. I think Mr. Beast took his first 100 videos on a broken iPhone as the story, or broken iPad.
Yeah.
It's not going to be perfect. I just started the other day, so I have yet to record this podcast episode, but it's like, you know what? I need to do more video. And I was doing a solo recording of my podcast. I do half solo, half interviews like this. And it's like,
Yeah.
you know what? I'm on Zoom. I wanted to record the video of myself speaking so that I can repurpose it.
Hmm.
So, I turn on QuickTime and it's like, you know what? Maybe I should just use Zoom to record myself. So I turn on Zoom and then I realized, oh, I can actually live stream with the paid plan I have onto YouTube. So I
Oh,
just started live streaming on YouTube, right? And I got a few hundred views. And if
there
I
you
just
go.
kept that to myself, I would, and now I'm looking at repurposing that live stream into several horizontal videos, right? And it's like, I would not have gotten that if I didn't began just that art of live streaming, right?
Right.
If I wasn't afraid. So, sometimes little things like that can be really, really impactful. So take the emotions out and really think holistically about everything. And I was scared. Why? People are not going to want to watch a live stream of a talking head of me speaking for an hour, or
Yeah.
it's going to mess up the algorithm. Just you're thinking. I was thinking way too much about it. It's just a get out there, do it. And now, Alan, I'm really happy to say, like every interview I do going forward, I'm going to live stream it. I'm going to repurpose that video. It's going to help me become more productive, but it's also going to make the interviews funner because now they're live streamed. There's this Hollywood, we're going live now. And now
Yeah.
guess what? I can schedule it in advance. Now people on my YouTube channel can get notified when, I can let my community members be backstage in my StreamYard, invite them on stage. So it actually opened up this whole new arena of things I can do that's going to help improve my marketing. And it all started from one little thing. It's like that little wave, that little pebble in the ocean can create this big
Ripple out.
wave. Yeah, exactly. And I think there's so much potential for that in so many different aspects of marketing. Part of it is the science of data-driven marketing, but part of it is that art, right? Of being the artist, being creative, and finding new ways. And that's the creativity is really what I want more marketers to have.
Beautifully said, Neal. Honestly, thank you, Neal Schaffer, on the podcast today for dropping so much knowledge for free, guys. This is the best thing about Talking Marketing is we get all this great education from these wonderful people, and
Well,
we're not asking for anything.
you're already paying your AMA dues, right?
You
So
better
you should.
be. We hope everyone is. Yes. Always going to push people back into AMA where you can learn a lot and hear from people like Neal. Neal, I want to say thank you again, and also plug your stuff. Tell people where they can find your stuff on social media and business wise.
Well, I'm Neal Schaffer. I decided a long time ago, I used to have these brands like Windmill Networking was my original brand,
Uh-huh.
website, name of my first book. Then I moved to Maximize Social Business. And then I realized that, and then I moved to Maximize Your Social, name of my third book. I realized, you know what? I need a brand that's going to stay with me forever, and it's my name.
Your
And,
name. Mhm.
right? So no matter what trend happens, and that's why I started doing that. So I'm Neal Schaffer everywhere on social media. I'm the real Neal, so it's Neal. Schaffer. There's a few Schaeffers out there, so make sure you get the spelling right. Obviously, I have a few books on Amazon. The Age of Influence is my most recent one about influencer marketing. So if that is of any interest, I recommend you check that out. And I have my own podcast called Your Digital Marketing Coach, where it's sort of a virtual consultation. I'm imagining that you are my consulting client and I am helping you with your digital marketing is sort of the concept. So it's very broad, covering a lot of different marketing aspects, but it's half solo, half interview with people like, Joe Polizzi. I got Melanie Desio coming on soon. Jason McDonald, who's authored all these best-selling Amazon like social media marketing workbook for 2023. So I try to really pick some amazing guests to help share a lot of knowledge as well. So if any of that is interesting, I hope you'll check it out.
Fabulous. Thanks again to Neal Schaffer for joining me on Talking Marketing. After this, you'll hear my little plug zone call to action, where I recommend ways that you can get involved with AMA Boston, either as a volunteer or as a VP or a sponsor. Yeah, it's all very cool stuff. And we have really cool events. If you check out amaboston.org, it's all there. So that'll do it for this episode of Talking Marketing. If you enjoyed this episode of Talking Marketing and you want to hear more of our conversations with marketing professionals, subscribe to the podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or any other major podcast platform of choice. We're also on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube as AMA Boston. And most importantly, if you'd like to support the work we do here, please consider becoming an AMA Boston member by heading over to amaboston.org/become-a-member. AMABoston.org is also the #1 place to find all of our work, including the AMA Boston blog, events calendar, job board, and a whole suite of ways to volunteer with our team. We get to keep doing this thanks to the support of listeners like you. Thank you.